Hey church, Pastor Adam here. I'm in the kitchen today. A lot of times on Thursdays, which is when I record these videos typically, I work from my home. It's my day of study and preparation for preaching, as well as vision casting and future planning and doing this. And my wife is always really helpful to kind of clear out and let me have the run of the house on Thursdays so I can be home. And so my office on Thursday is at whatever surface is clear, and then today was the kitchen table. So here I am. Well, we're going to begin 3 weeks in the book of Judges this Sunday morning. And so what I thought I would do with this message is to just kind of give you an overview of where we've been. Because for a lot of us, especially if you're really new to the Bible, some of the things that are foundational to it, I hope you've seen them over the past several weeks, but they might be new to you. And so here's where we've been. We started out in the book of Genesis, where God creates, and He creates in perfection, and He creates with the idea that all that He created, including humanity, which is the pinnacle of His creation, would live in close fellowship with Him. But after being tempted, and then through their own decision, the first man and the first woman, Adam and Eve, fall away from God. They chase after false promises, and ultimately they commit kind of an idolatry. So they fall away from God, and then they begin to spread out over the earth. God is gracious to them the whole time. They spread out over the earth, and God tries a couple of more times to create close fellowship with people. But each time it's people who break that fellowship. It's people who break that covenant. And all the while, God is gracious to them. And so God decides to do something new, starting in Genesis 12. He calls, first of all, a single man. People have kind of multiplied and filled the earth, and He calls a single man named Abram. What He says is Abram, and He changes his name to Abraham. I'm going to bless you by being your God. I'm going to give your descendants a land of their own to live in. And I am going to give you numerous descendants to come after you. At the time, Abraham's about 70 years old. He doesn't have any descendants. His wife is unable to have children. And so throughout the next several hundred years, his descendants are built up and they're grown. Through a long series of God-ordained circumstances, those descendants end up multiplying into a couple of million people in slavery under the Egyptians. And that's when God hears their cry to be freed from slavery and out of bondage. And so God miraculously brings them out. And even though people continue to sin, God continues to be gracious. That's the theme of really the whole Bible, but certainly the first 5 books of the Bible is the people sin and God's gracious. So He brings the people out of slavery in Egypt, and He gives them a way of living. He makes a covenant with them. He gives them a law to govern their life, and tells them this is what people who are under my rule, who are part of my kingdom, live like. And then ultimately He does give them the promised land. And so it's a people now living in the land with the blessing of God being their God. And it's eventually through that people and from that land that God is going to bring Jesus Christ, who will redeem all people who call on Him. And so that's why we've called this series, this long series all the way through the Bible, from Genesis all the way to Revelation, we've called this series Redemption Unfolding. Because we're seeing how it is that God has redeemed in Christ. Where did that start? All the way from the very beginning. And how has that worked Himself out? And now we're going to get into the book of Judges this Sunday. And Judges is really the first stories, the first narratives of the people living in the land and their struggle to live with God as their king and for His glory. They're still going to sin, and God's going to be gracious. And so this is going to be the rhythm of Judges, and really the rest of the Bible is what happens when people sin. How does God correct that sin, often even in punishment, but how does He continue to be gracious to them? So just a little overview of the Scriptures. We start 3 weeks in Judges this Sunday. I want to remind you of the members meeting, if you're a covenant member, on Monday, June 6th at 7 p.m. Big meeting, sharing a lot of vision, a lot of exciting things. And until I see you on this Sunday morning, God's blessings to you.